everybody. Good morning. Welcome to day number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 of our Bible reading plan for the year. And our scripture for today is going to be coming out of Genesis. We are looking at chapters 12 through 15. And we're also going to be diving into the book of Psalms, looking at chapter number 4. Down below, we have got a link posted for the Read Scripture video that's going to be accompanying this section of scripture. So please click and enjoy that. Give them a thumbs up like on YouTube if you enjoy it. As far as our material that we've got for today, some interesting stuff. Some bullet points of what happens is that God calls Abraham in this section of scripture. When Abraham gets called, God asks him to go to a land that's far away that he's not familiar with, to basically just pack up and leave. Leave everything you know. Go over here. Trust in me and wait on me. It's pretty tough to do sometimes. But Abraham, while he does make mistakes, he's quite a good example as well in so many ways. We also see in this case that Abraham and Lot separate. If you're not familiar with Lot or their relationship, you will learn about that when you read today. But Abraham and Lot get separated. They divide the land up. And when they do, Lot goes to live near a town called Sodom. And there are a number of kings in the area that decide that they want to go raid and plunder the city of Sodom. And when they do, Lot gets captured. Abraham hears about this, and he's not going to have anybody kidnapping any of his family members and taking them off. So Abraham, he rounds up the boys, and he goes after him, and he gets Lot back. Abraham kicks booty and takes names for sure. He's not someone to be messed with. And I do keep saying Abraham just because I'm so accustomed to him being called Abraham once we move farther in the book. But at this point, his name is actually Abram, because God does change his name and starts to call him by a slightly different name. So for right now, we're just going to call him Abram. So please ignore any of the times I've called him Abraham. We're not quite there yet. So anyways, after Abram rescues Lot, God makes a covenant with Abram. And this Abrahamic covenant has got quite a few things, quite a few promises, and a lot of content that requires faith for Abraham to believe, and a lot of things that are going to be discussed throughout the rest of the Old Testament, really. This kind of sets the stage for what's going to be happening. I've got a couple of points of interest that I noted down here, and one of those is the last time when we talked about the incident with Noah's nakedness and his son Ham, and the curse that Noah put on Ham, or more specifically on Ham's son Canaan. That was in chapter 9, which we just covered. But now, as we move towards the end of this section of scripture, at the end of chapter 15, we see that God is giving Abram that section of land that they talk about in this covenant. And it's interesting that section of land is primarily inhabited by the descendants of Canaan that are listed in previous genealogies. So that's kind of something to take note of, that Canaan was cursed. And now it looks like God has sent Abraham in to take over the land from Canaan and all of his siblings and all of his ancestors. So you'll get to see how that plays out. And in chapter 15, but this is in verse 6, it says that Abram believed the Lord and it was credited to him as righteousness. And that just goes to show that it's not so much by our works that we are credited the righteousness of God, that we obtain saving faith, that we are justified. It's not by doing and trying to claim these things of our own power. It's from faith in God and faith in his promises that we're justified. And like James would tell you, if you've got real faith, if you've got saving faith, that faith is going to produce some sort of fruit, maybe more in some people than others, but there's going to be some level of love, some level of obedience, some level of works, some level of fruit that are going to come from someone who is a true Christian. So In Hebrews has a verse that says, "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him earnestly." So those are just a couple of examples of a lot of places in Scripture where it talks about how important faith is and how it's faith in God and his power and his promises and faith in his works that grants us the righteousness through the sacrifice that Christ paid ultimately on the cross for us. So those are just a couple of tidbits to think about as you go into the reading, if you haven't hit up any of the scripture yet for today. So I hope you guys have a blessed day. I hope you enjoy the scripture and that you're enjoying these videos. If you've got anything you want to add to my comments, drop it in the comment section below. If you've got any of your own thoughts you want to bring up, or if there's any little bits and pieces of this scripture that touch you, especially the Psalms, feel free to comment on that. As I kind of summarize and share my thoughts about the assigned reading each day, I'm sticking more with the stuff of the more chronologically assigned books as opposed to just the one-off chapters in Psalms. Those are super important and very, very valuable. But for the most part, I'm going to be commenting on the other scripture. So just dive into those Psalms at your own will. It's a good idea to pray through those Psalms as they relate to you. And just let me know below. What's on y'all's hearts? What has God said to you through the scripture? And I will see you again tomorrow morning. Have a good one.